Today I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing this pendant light that was sent to me by Delipop to create this video. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be opening up, showing you exactly what you get inside, and then also showing you how difficult it is to install and the different process that is available for that. So let me open up, show you what you get inside. So this is everything that you're going to get inside. So it does come with the instructions. It comes with all of these things to connect these covers to the lights themselves. And then it's actually going to come with the wires that are going to look like this. And you actually have to connect them in with this, which I'm not a fan of at all. I just really would have preferred if they would have done it a little bit differently. So you are going to need to connect in these different wires, and then you have to connect it in with this wire that you're then going to run up from there to the wires that are in your box. So it is a downside to it. There's a little bit more electrical work required. They don't have these spliced together or anything straight from the factory. So there's just a little bit more work that you are going to have to do with these, as you have to use these little things to get the wiring in and then get the wiring back out, that sort of a deal. So it is definitely a downside to this installation process, but of course not the end of the world. So let me go ahead and put this all together and then get it hung up. Now in regards to putting on the covers for the lights, you're quite literally just going to take this, slide it over the top, and then you're going to take these rings and put them on to the top as well, and then screw the little thing onto the bottom here to hold it into place. Now this is not going to come with light bulbs, so you will need to purchase the light bulb separately. Now, if you are doing this yourself, you could certainly wait to do this after the install of the actual plates, just to save yourself on a little bit of weight, since you can easily put these on after everything else is done. So that's actually what I'm going to go ahead and do. I was going to put these on. Again, you're just going to put it like this, put it on, and then tighten up these screws. But rather than do that, I'm going to wait and save myself a little bit of weight while putting this up. Now, how the install is actually going to work is you're going to take this off of here. You're going to mount this to your box in the ceiling. So this part here is going to be mounted up with the screws that are provided. And then that's going to actually come down through this part here. And then you're going to tighten this onto here to hold this in place. And then your wires from these three are going to go into these holes. And again, you're going to put those inside of there. And then you're going to tighten them in place. It looks like you actually have to take this off. So I'm going to take off this nut and going to do it that way. So I'm just going to pop this nut off here. I'm going to slide this through here. And then I'm going to connect this back through here and then tighten that nut back down on the wiring. It doesn't say on the instructions exactly how you should do this. I think this part might want to be on the other side, just so you don't have that silver part actually showing. Now, another thing I did want to actually mention is that this is actually going to be 100% adjustable on where exactly you have it on here. So it does come relatively short, which actually would make wiring it up pretty difficult. So this is what it's going to come with, but you can actually move it up and down on this wire. So by moving it up and down, that's actually going to adjust exactly how long your lights are. You can choose to have three different heights on those if you want. You can have them all the same, whatever you desire. So all you have to do to adjust that is just you're going to loosen this screw here, and you're going to loosen this silver one on this side. And then once those are loose, then you can slide this whole thing. So it's actually going to be the same. It'll kind of pinch down a little bit on the wire when you tighten that back up. And so this is what's going to hold it into place. So you can adjust it exactly where you want it to be. And that'll allow you to have extra wire up in here when you're connecting them and wiring them all together as well. Let's say I wanted it about there. So I'm just going to take and screw that back in place. And then now that thing is not going to move. So once you screw that black thing back on the bottom, and then it's going to make this, the actual light itself, a bit shorter because I moved it down that far. So if you're wanting them to be exactly the same, you will need to measure that sort of deal. And then when you're putting it through here, you're just going to take and stick it right up through there. And that's what it's going to look like on the bottom. So it's going to have those two black plastic pieces there. And then up here on the top is where you're going to have this silver piece, like so. Just run that all the way down on top. And then you're just going to then thread your bolt all the way, or nut all the way through, sorry. And then you're just going to tighten that up. And then once that is tight, now you are good to go ahead and hang it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this, going to mount it up onto the ceiling, get ready for that. Then I'm going to figure out exactly what length I want for these three, and that's where I'll go next. Now on some of these, you're going to actually put the wires down through the screw hole, but on this one you're not, because it has a pretty wide base around it, and this little knob is going to screw up onto there. So you don't want the wires coming down through the middle. You want them off to the side like this. Then you're going to screw this and attach it to the box. You can see I've got it attached here on both sides, on the inside there and on the inside there with the two screws. Now they do come with washers as well. You could put them through these little holes. I prefer to do the sliders, and so I put the washers on those screws. Now let me go ahead and mount this up. So as you can see, I've got an issue. Only one of the bulbs has power, which means those wires came loose from those wire nuts up there. Now that is an issue with trying to put together three of these with these smaller wire nuts. They are going to be loose. And of course, when you're mounting this on your ceiling, you're working over your head. So definitely a downside. Now, one thing to consider is how low these are hanging. So I actually have this over my sink here. And this one is going to be way too low. So I'm going to need to adjust it up a good amount anyway. So would have to end up taking it down and probably losing those wires. This is going to be definitely a two-person job because you're not going to be able to easily hold that up onto the ceiling or near the ceiling while you're putting the wires on, etc. So definitely a downside to that. It doesn't have like one of those hanging wires that some of them do. So that is just going to be, it's going to require two people. You got to have somebody to hold up that thing. And even though I don't have the extra weight around where the light bulbs go, it's still working over your head a good amount while you're wiring it up. So definitely something to consider. Let me go ahead and hopefully get that fixed and then show you what the finished product is going to look like. So for these actual shades, you're going to just take off this part. Then you're going to put this black part on. Make sure you have it facing the right way. These screws are actually just there for decor. Like they really don't hold anything. And then this is going to screw up on the underside of that, like so. Now when installing these, I did find it helpful to have two people as well, just because this top is going to spin a good amount when you're screwing it on. So having somebody actually hold this did make it a little bit easier. So that is the finished product. Now obviously all three of these are adjustable in height. So we could have put them a lot further down, but since we're going over the sink where dishes are washed and pots and pans and that sort of thing, we did want to go with it a little bit higher. Now you can adjust these. We have two that are relatively close to the same height. So I truthfully prefer if one of them was going to be a little bit longer. So we might try that sometime in the future. Just kind of adjust it, make that one a little bit longer, or shorten up the other, or something like that. But overall, definitely a nice looking light fixture. Now, one thing you can do is you can also change out the bulbs if you want it to look a little bit differently. So we just have like the daylight LED bulbs. You could go with the bright white LED bulbs to get you less of a warm glow. It's less yellowish, more whitish. You could also put Edison bulbs in these as well. It just takes the regular light bulbs for this fixture. So overall, pretty happy with how it looks. The assembly process, installation process was a little bit time consuming, but that's true with most light fixtures. So overall, pretty happy with how it turned out. And what we ended up doing was we actually just loosened that a little bit and turned and rotated that entire top part. And so we were able to do that because of the way we wired up the wires. They are secure enough that we can do that. And then you can adjust these down and you should be able to push them up conceivably by just turning those little black knobs and then pulling on it. But the issue we had was actually pushing it up into there. It was running into the other wires, so we weren't able to push it that much. However, we were able to pull it down a bit just to get a little bit more offset between the three lights and the fixtures. And then by rotating it, we put the longer one in the back, the two shorter ones in front. So I feel like it looks a little bit nicer that way.